Community is what I would say one of the biggest pros or appeals that church has for most people. That's where a lot of people feel, that sense of camaraderie, that unified belief with a group of people, right? They're people that they're estranged from family up until church enters the picture, and it starts to become a thing that draws people together, that builds community, that reinforces relationships. But what happens when that place that harbored love and community and camaraderie starts to now flip the script and call you lost, rebellious, demon possessed? What happens when that safe place turns into a place that actually signals you out and points you out?
This is the dark side of devotion.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Dark Side of Devotion. Thank you for being here with us. So, we are going to start this episode by letting you guys know that today is the season 1 finale episode. Yes, we are ending season 1 today. We just decided that we put out there what we wanted to put out there for season 1, and we deserve a break. Okay, it is hard work to be talking about your triggers, to be talking about the things that you have healed from, the things that you haven't healed from yet, the things that you are still working on, and yeah. So I'm excited, and we will be back for season 2. So do not go anywhere. Keep watching this space. Keep following us on social media. We still will remain active on there, even though new episodes of the podcast won't be coming out. We're aiming to launch season 2 around late summer, early fall. So, again, watch this space so that you don't miss any announcements. And yeah, thank you guys for being here. I mean, we've connected and reconnected with so many people, and we've had so many conversations, and we have been able to share stories and validate each other. And it's just been a beautiful experience, seriously. So thank you again for being here. And I hope that you continue to follow us for the ride, because it is not ending yet.
It has been a great ride, and I want to say thank you to everybody that's taken time out of their day to listen to us, to help build a community. I would say that, like, it's pretty cool to see how we have people from Europe, people from Africa, people from South America, North America, literally from all over, that have shown interest in what we're doing, what we're saying, have validated us as well. Because I think everybody that has any kind of traumatic experience, they struggle at some point with an imposter syndrome. You second guess yourself. Am I overreacting? Is this really the way that things were? And having other people from all over, all different kinds of walks of life, validating that what we're saying is true, it means a lot to us. And it goes to show that this is not even a personal issue. It's legitimately a global issue. And I'm glad that so many of us can get together in this space and have conversations that before were taboo to have. Ask questions that we were rebuked for asking, that we can learn together, that we can have a safe space to just be without having any kind of pressure or stigma there looming over us. So thank you guys. A lot of people thank us for talking. We thank you for showing up and listening and engaging. We have a very interesting episode today. You got something to say, Steph?
Yeah, I just wanted to say too that it's been an honor to do this, because a lot of times we've gotten people that tell us we're being a voice for them. And that makes me feel, like we're doing something really important. I'm going to cry. I did not want to cry, but it really touches home, because, I remember when I left, I really needed a space like this to exist, and it didn't exist. There was no community. There was no validation. It was just loneliness, and it was hard. It was hard to dig yourself out, but it was very necessary. And I'm glad that we're here today, and I'm glad that we can be a voice for so many of you out there. Your kind words and your heartfelt words have been so inspiring and motivating to continue going on this journey. So again, thank you.
I feel like we're building something that is needed, right? This support group for, it's such a very particular way that we grew up. It's such a very particular set of parameters that we were programmed with, that Um, it's something about building a community with like-minded people, people that have been through similar experiences, that's freeing and it's healing all in of itself. So thank you everybody once again. We have an episode that I feel is super important. Community is what I would say one of the biggest pros or appeals that church has for most people. That's where a lot of people feel, that sense of camaraderie, that unified belief with a group of people, right? There are people that they're estranged from family up until church enters the picture, and it starts to become a thing that draws people together, that builds community, that reinforces relationships. But what happens when that place that harbored love and community and camaraderie starts to now flip the script and call you lost, rebellious, demon possessed? What happens when that safe place turns into a place that actually signals you out and points you out? That's the reality of a lot of people that make that choice to step away from their church, to step away from maybe not even religion altogether, but just one church. Something is off, and they're branded as some kind of monster, right? They're branded as some kind of bad guy. They're looked at as somebody who is untrustworthy because they voice concerns, because they have questions, or because they they want to see what else is out there, right? Because at the end of the day, church is a public space and you're free to come and go as you please, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about isolation, how you get excommunicated leaving, and something that is called religious trauma syndrome. And it is likened to PTSD. And like the name implies, it has to do with religious trauma. Something very interesting. And some people may even say, how can you be traumatized by a church? Let me tell you that even something so good in general, right? A lot of people view church as a positive. It's a place of love, of learning, of forgiveness, right? A lot of people view it as a positive experience. For you to be traumatized by something like a church, you gotta think about the fact that a lot of people get their moral fiber, their framework for their outlook on life comes from religious institutions many times. So it can be very damaging when these kind of places have a negative influence on somebody, because a lot of the times people don't see it coming. They have their guard down when it comes to religious institutions, which leaves them wide open and vulnerable to be susceptible to all kinds of abuse. And we'll kind of go over a little bit of that throughout this episode.
Yeah, I find that very interesting because what you were saying about community, that was the best part about religion, having each other. And the best friends I've ever had were the ones that I made in church, within my youth group, within my social circles there. I think because within church, we struggled so much together. And like my friends at school maybe didn't know about my problems, but my friends at church did. Like we helped each other, we uplifted each other, we prayed for each other, we knew what was going on in each other's lives. So I think that's why, like, the community that we build in those spaces, if you are able to meet genuine people, and in places like these you can find a lot of really good genuine people, then like your connections were real. And then it's so hard to go through the isolation afterwards, because it's like people that you bonded with so much just suddenly unsee your humanity out of nowhere and are able to cut you off like chopped liver. And it hurts, and it's hard. And what you're saying about the religious trauma syndrome, I'm so excited to dive into that, because basically we had gone through all of the things there. It's a very real thing, and it's a very real thing that a lot of people go through. So yeah, I mean, the isolation afterwards, after leaving, is rough. But I like to think of it like the people who left me were just not truly for me, or they were for me for that season. But I'm growing into a new era, and that's going to bring new friends, new social circles, new connections. And that's what I look forward to, and that's what I'm excited about.
That's beautiful. I feel like particularly from the institution that we survived from, a lot of people, they associate leaving with danger and a lot of negative consequences following. And a lot of people are very paranoid, they have anxiety, they get worried about the thought of leaving and all the implications that come with it, right? And I want to preface before we go into this religious trauma syndrome, the symptoms and the causes, I want to preface that this explains a lot of that anxiety, or this explains a lot of that discomfort that comes at the thought of leaving or after having left. A lot of people feel like, the anxiety's starting up and they've never had anxiety before. So all of a sudden, this evil spirit's trying to come in and attack them right for leaving. Like, we're conditioned to think that automatically that's what this is. But I love that this goes to show that there is a science, like there is something going on mentally, emotionally, biologically in that person that justifies the reactions that come afterwards. It's not, not to give into that the religious bypassing of, oh, it's a demon, or as soon as you feel a little bit of this, that, the other, it has to be a spiritual attack. Oftentimes, the things that are coined as spiritual attacks, when you really do the research on it, there's more to it than just the superstitious side to it, right? It's important to kind of keep that in perspective. This sheds light as to what happens to ex-members when they do leave. And yeah, I think that's the main thing that I want to preface. This sheds that light, and it justifies that if you're having a tough time, it doesn't mean you made a bad call. It's just there's a natural process to things.
I love that you mentioned that, because I think a huge healing point has been to demystify things, for me anyways, personally. It has been to look at the science and the psychology behind why certain things happened, why certain reactions or certain things that started surfacing came up. And any high demand religion, or in Christianity in general, it could be very easy to slip into that thought of like, oh no, this is a spiritual attack. But imagine now, it coming from where we come from, the universal church, where we know everything is demonized constantly all the time, like without break. So how much more of this trauma does a survivor from UCKG actually carry? I feel like it's much more than a lot of different sects that I've researched and I've seen, because of this particular aspect. And so I know for a fact there are a lot of people that struggle with that after leaving, with thinking that they're under constant spiritual attack. Just think about it. What does that do to you? What does that do to your energy? How do you show up in the world if you're constantly thinking that you're under spiritual attack, that you're not good enough, that you're demon possessed, that God has rejected you, or that you're the bad one for having left? That's going to totally affect everything that you do, and how you show up, and how you put yourself out there, how you show up to work, how you show up to your family, how you show up in society. And whatever energy you carry, that's what's going to be perpetuated. And so when you start getting your autonomy back, and you start like really working on the trauma, that's when you really start to see a change.
Absolutely. And it's going to make a lot more sense now. So let's get to it. What is religious trauma syndrome, right? Or RTS? RTS is a psychological condition experienced by people who leave authoritarian, dogmatic, or controlling religious environments. It manifests similarly to PTSD, often with deep emotional, cognitive, and relational struggles. So it sounds about right. It sounds like what a person leaving, a place like UCKG might go through. Here's some common causes of RTS. One, fear-based teachings, constant exposure to doctrines about hell, divine punishment, or unworthiness. So being drilled all the time with fear and worrying about something bad happening to you, guess what? Not so great for your nervous system. um,
Exactly. Yes.
Number two, authoritarian control. So leaders discouraging questioning, critical thinking, or personal autonomy. Surprise, surprise. Having somebody else tell you how to think and feel about everything, not so good for you. Three, isolation from society. So being taught that the outside world is dangerous or evil, which I can't tell you how damaging that right there was for me personally. Like, viewing the outside world or the world in general as negative or bad, you're constantly in a fight or flight mode. In that way, you're always on edge. There's always something to watch out for. And surprisingly enough, like, it's supposed to be a faith-filled environment, but they instill more fear a lot of the times with their teachings than they do faith that everything's going to be okay, right? The over focusing on that is not good. Suppression of identity. So being forced to conform to rigid beliefs about gender roles, sexuality, or personal aspirations. And another major one is shame and guilt, feeling inherently sinful, dirty, or unworthy, leading to self hatred and anxiety. It's a lot to unpack there. Any thoughts, Steph?
I mean, I certainly can relate on a lot of those things. Like looking back, that's exactly what I was going through. And it wasn't until I embarked on my own personal healing journey that I was able to finally get through that desert. But there are a lot of people that stay stuck there, and they actually stay in this vicious cycle where they keep actually going back to their old church that caused the trauma in the first place because they feel this guilt and this like weird kind of convoluted sense of loyalty to this place because it's like this traumatic bond, and they don't quite see it as just a toxic role that it has played in its life. And so whether it's just to appease family or they think that it makes them feel better to go, so when they leave again, it's the vicious cycle all over again. There are people that don't even realize that the things that they're still carrying with today stem from a trauma from their days in that high demand religion, whether it was a moment where the pastor just yelled at them and put them to shame in front of everybody, you know, like totally embarrassed them in front of everybody. And that was completely uncalled for. Or, you know, comments that pastors have said about them being spiritually unclean or demon possessed or all of these things, and it's still there playing in their mind. It's still there playing very much an active
Those are
role in
all
their life.
the fear-based teachings, by the way, everything you just mentioned.
Yeah. And that's like what I was saying. I feel like more than anything, that's probably one of the main things that survivors, specifically from where we came from, struggle with, because there were a lot of mind games and a lot of fear-based tactics in there. And so, you know, I just want to encourage the listeners to really just kind of be honest with themselves and think about the things that they still carry, whether it's some limiting beliefs that stem from there or a situation that happened and it's been a trigger ever since. Like ever since, whenever you're in a similar kind of situation, you just can't handle it because it brings you back to something really terrible that happened. And, you know, these are things that you're not alone, because I think all of us have come out of there with some sort of trauma. If you didn't, like, I think that is the rarity, because there was just so many ways to come out traumatized. But the good news is that there is a way to heal from it and there is a way to move forward. So, you know, keep on going, listen to yourself, take your autonomy back. I remember feeling so alone and isolated while going through all this. Looking back now, I think I needed to be alone, and I'm glad I was alone because it made me face myself, and it made me have to face like my fears, my beliefs about myself, you know, not just my belief system, but just the beliefs I held about myself, you know, and just reconnecting with myself and my body. I was disconnected from my body for a long time, especially in high demand religion. The body is stigmatized, is demonized. So we're not really listening to our feelings or listening to our body. So definitely, it's been a journey. It's been a journey, but it's not impossible. And I hope that the listeners can gain some inspiration to start healing from their religious trauma.
Absolutely. And so I basically went over a little bit about the causes, right? And I feel like I read these causes and I can check off all the boxes of themes or tones that existed during my time in a church, right? So the fear-based teachings absolutely was filled with it. Authoritarian control, absolutely. Isolation from society, absolutely. I, as an auxiliary pastor, I was not allowed to talk to my family frequently. I wasn't allowed to have friends outside of the church. I wasn't even allowed to be like friends with the members in the church, to have like to get too close to people. So literally it was me and God. And that sounds like awesome on paper, right? But really think about not having anybody physically that you can be real with, that you can have a friendship with, that you can have as a confidant. Like you're you're isolated from the entire world. It's you against the world, right? And the suppression of identity, absolutely. Like, we were constantly taught to empty ourselves of us to fill ourselves up with the teachings of the church. Shame and guilt, that's their bread and butter. Like, they'll guilt you for the things you don't do, and they'll guilt you for the things you do. Um, so now, what are the symptoms of RTS? Like, how can you tell if you might be struggling with something related to this religious trauma syndrome? So one of the main symptoms is anxiety and panic attacks. So fear of hell, judgment, or divine punishment may replay in your mind all the time. It's like the person only obsesses about all the negative things that could happen to them, and they're working themselves up into a frenzy, like just thinking about possibilities that were taught to them by somebody else to have. Depression, so loss of purpose, identity crisis, feelings of abandonment, leaving, once again, a church environment where you were taught to feel and believe certain things for so long, and everybody you care about might also still be in there. You stepping away from all that will naturally lead to depression. It's not a demonic attack. It's not an evil spirit attaching itself to you. It's you coming to terms with what is going on in your life. Is you, how can I say, being present in the experience you're having, right? Nightmares and flashbacks, which
If I can jump in, yeah, nightmares. Yeah, I don't know if you remember. I used to wake up with nightmares.
I was gonna say Steph could touch to that. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm telling you, like when I left, I would say the first probably 2 years were like the most tumultuous because my nervous system was completely out of whack. I had no idea. I had no idea what a nervous system was. Okay. My anxiety and depression, because as a pastor's wife, I was already like looking back now, I was showing signs of anxiety and depression as a pastor's wife. I think even before getting married, that training period to become a pastor's wife, that's when my anxiety really, truly manifested. But, moving forward, coming out of that high demand environment, my nervous system is like recalibrating, and I was having nightmares almost every night. You know what my nightmares were about? My nightmares were that I was waking up and I had an assistant's uniform and I was back in the church. And I'm like, oh, hell no.
That's hilarious, man.
It's funny now, but in the moment, I swear to God, I would wake up crying. I was like, the people the pastors, the real authoritarian, like, fundamentalists, those kind of pastors are really harsh with their words, never compassionate, never care about anything or anyone
We could
else.
just say the assholes, because that is an
Yeah.
archetype in there. It is.
Essentially, I had to do a lot of healing regarding those. And I would have nightmares of like being in their church again, or like being stuck somewhere and looking for my way out of the church. It was crazy. The RTS is so real. The religious trauma syndrome is definitely real. My anxiety started like really peaking because I would be at work and I would send you videos of my hand. My fingers would be like this for no reason. Like nothing was going on at work. I was cool, calm, collected. I felt safe. I felt secure. But it's like that book. I haven't read it yet, but I hear it's such a good book. I should read it. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's so
Great book. Great book.
Have you read it?
Absolutely.
I don't remember. You read so many books. Anthony,
one of my favorites.
Anthony is such a big reader, like seriously. So yeah, I have to read it because your body, even when you get out of that situation, your body has definitely kept a score still of all of the trauma and all of the stuff you went through, because in the moment you couldn't react. In the moment you couldn't yell back at the bishop that was like basically embarrassing you for no reason or yelling at you for no reason. You couldn't talk back to the pastor's wife that was being such a bitch to you. You couldn't talk back to defend yourself when you were getting in trouble for something that wasn't even your fault, or when you saw some injustice and you just wanted to speak up, like that's not fair. You couldn't speak up. So all of these things, they get stored in the body when you don't allow yourself to feel your feelings. And when I left, you are a witness. My anxiety was like so bad. I was depressed. I really was depressed. And so it was a struggle between going through that and not thinking that I was demon possessed and going down a dark road and navigating those kind of feelings. But I've always been someone that has been pretty level-headed and a critical thinker. And I've always been I love like analyzing situations and love looking at things through different perspectives. So I was always able to kind of get out of my head a little bit and look at things from from a psychology point of view, for example, during that time. So I started looking into my mental health. I started taking up yoga, breath practices, meditation. They helped so much. They really helped so much. I wanted a more holistic approach, you know? And we were going to church at that time, a different church. And we were actually serving at a different church already. So I felt like my connection with God was strong. I was still so much, you know, in my Christian girl era. But underlying all of that, I was still going through this anxiety and this depression. And so it's just really important to understand if this is something you've gone through, you're going through, you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you. Your body is simply processing in real time all the shit that you had stored that you could not process before. And it's
Absolutely.
nothing to be ashamed about at all.
Absolutely. Like I feel like everybody goes through some kind of variation of these symptoms, if not all of them, most of them. Um, the anxiety, the depression, it says nightmares or flashbacks. So there are people that they're not having nightmares, but throughout the day, like this would happen to me a lot. I'm imagining conversations that I never had with pastors or bishops, speaking up in moments that I didn't have the courage to before. Like I'm replaying things that were said to me. And now with a fresh perspective, now that I'm out of their brainwashing 24/7, I'm not listening to them all the time. I'm starting to take back, you know, my life and reassess, reevaluate how I feel about things truly and who I am now outside of their doctrine, outside of their standards, outside of everything. Um, it's something that like for the first time I was realizing, hey, that was wrong. And that was a big breakthrough moment for me when I was able to like look back at conversations that were had and how things were dealt with and look back and think, but wait, I can't believe I allowed somebody to talk to me like that. I can't believe I allowed somebody to get away with that. I can't believe that this was even an option or this was something that somebody who was supposedly of God would consider to do, say, or not do in these circumstances. And it gets worse in the sense that if you start deconstructing like your belief system after leaving a high demand religious environment, you become less religious, but funny enough, you become more spiritual because now that you're out of that like religious, like giving them the benefit of the doubt and having good eyes and the excuses portion of making excuses for their behavior, now that you just see it objectively and you think, hey, I'm not even, you know, a Christian per se anymore, but even I would never think to say or do something like that. That speaks volumes. Like you see a lot of people that are quote unquote not churchgoers or religious that are a lot more of an example or closer to what Jesus would call or consider a disciple than people that are actually within churches or actually have, you know, titles of a pastor or any kind of religious authority figure, right? So it's very interesting. A couple more symptoms here of the religious trauma syndrome: perfectionism and self-criticism, feeling unworthy unless constantly striving for religious approval. So overcompensating, right? Happened to me. Like when I left the pastor role, I needed to be extra in faith to prove to people that I'm not going down, to make sure that people don't worry about me. You feel like you have to prove how spiritual you are to people, right? And that's all part of that syndrome. Difficulty making decisions, fear of making the wrong choice without religious guidance. That's a big one. A lot of people that have been in high demand religion, they're used to somebody else thinking for them all the time, telling them what they can and can't do. When they finally have the freedom to choose, they don't know what they want because they've never been in a position where they've been asked, "What do you want?" Or they haven't been in a position in so long where they have the freedom to think about what appeals to them that they have no idea who they are, what they like, what they don't like, right?
I mean, imagine those that grew up in the church, like completely, like from a child growing up in the Bible school and then, you know, working their way up to becoming a pastor. No life experience, never any self exploration, never even really identifying with with anything other than the church itself. So you can imagine when a person like that leaves the system, which we've seen people like that leave the system and like rediscovering themselves now. Like we have friends like that right now that grew up completely in the system and are now like being a human for the first time. And it's such a joy to see. Like I love to see us, you know, healing and taking our lives back and being happy and all of that. So yeah.
Absolutely. And then the last symptom on here that they talk about is loss of social support. So being shunned, excommunicated, or losing a community. All these things are in combination what a lot of high demand institutions would call, being demon possessed or, getting cold in your faith. Like you would think they associate depression as getting cold in your faith, but no, depression is just you feeling a deep sadness or deep sense of grief over something. Like when you step away from high demand religion, especially if you've been involved in it for a while, it's not an easy choice. There's layered experiences. Like once again, you've had a big sense of community in there. You've had a lot of great memories that were built there. If not, you wouldn't have stayed to a certain extent, right? Like it's so confusing for the person to come to terms with what's actually happening, that when you lose all of that and all of a sudden people you cared about are talking ill of you, or all of a sudden people are looking at you in a certain kind of way, you don't have those relationships anymore. It's normal to feel depressed. You feel almost like you're grieving. Like you go through those steps of grief. You get angry, you go through denial, you get through acceptance, you try to bargain with God. Like you go through those things. And depression has such a stigma, I think, where in religious contexts or people that grew up religious, you hear depression like, oh no, I can't get depressed, I have God. um Hello, listen to me, this might be a hot take, but remember when Jesus was in the garden praying and crying so hard about the crucifixion coming up, he was sweating blood. Like, I've been stressed before, but I've never sweat blood out of stress. He was feeling it, even though he had God. You know what I'm saying? He was not immune to having a very like physical experience, to
Mhm.
dealing with the reality of being betrayed, losing community, right? The people that he walked with and helped turning their back on him. Like these are the kind of situations that people that step away from high demand religion find themselves in as well. So it's valid.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the sooner people just accept that they're human, and that means that they're going to have a human experience, which is very layered and complex, the sooner you'll be happy and live life to the fullest. Because to think that just because you have God in your life, that you could never get depressed, that is such ignorant thinking. Like the, there's plenty of things that can go on in the background that cause depression. um for so many different reasons. Like women, for example, we have hormonal issues. Like I'm someone who has suffered with PCOS for years, okay? And PCOS messes with my hormones, so I do get bouts of depression every now and then, and it's perfectly normal because of my hormonal changes. And so the best way that I can get through those bouts for myself is to love myself, to take a step back from things if I need to hold space for all of my complexities and all of my feelings and all the things that, not really judging things as being wrong or sinful. And instead of looking at myself with more compassion, that is the only way I'm going to help myself and really be able to move forward. I'm the one I'm waiting for, So yeah, I feel like you're human. There's no shame in even like seeking out therapy for mental illnesses. This is something that is so taboo and stigmatized in the church. Mind you, there are many pastors and bishops that hold leadership roles. I'm not a therapist, but I can say show many classic textbook signs of a lot of different mental illnesses, okay? So the fact that mental health is stigmatized and mental illnesses are super stigmatized, what does that mean? That means that there's a bunch of imbalanced human beings who don't know anything about themselves and how to regulate their nervous systems, how to seek out help for themselves. They're, not having the right routines or the right medications to deal with whatever underlying issues they have. So that is what you get, a big, huge dysregulated body of people that just continue to perpetuate this unhealingness. That's not a word, but you know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And it's just, that just keeps going down the line. So, you know, accept yourself. You're human. You're meant to feel. You're meant to go through so many things. Just love yourself through it all, you know? That's all I want to say.
Absolutely. I feel like it leads to a very high level of dysfunction. Like anything that
Yes.
involves, I think, your belief system, a lot of the times people are highly defined by their belief system, right? It's a big part of their identity, their religion. So when you get stuck in a high demand religious environment that damages like the integrity of, you know, how that's meant to be practiced in a healthy way, right? Like I feel like nowadays with religion, or specific Christianity in a sense, like it can be confusing to people in Christianity why people step away, and out of the goodness of their heart, in their minds, they think, no, but God can help with all things. So they go pursuing these people that have had like experiences in religion in the hopes to try to help. But they don't realize that there is real trauma and abuse that these people might still be trying to process. So what is medicine to one person is poison to the other. Like if you're diabetic and you take a shot of insulin, it might save your life. If you're not a diabetic and you take a shot of insulin, you might be dead. So it is all about context, it's about timing, it's about situation, and giving yourself the freedom to process and heal in the way that is right for you. There may be people all around you trying to tell you what healing looks like for you, but only you really know internally what feels right. And that might sound incorrect because usually high demand religion tends to stomp on personal feelings, because the way they control you is by telling you to ignore your feelings, basically ignore all the red flags, ignore
And your
your
intuition.
your intuition, your opinion, your gut feeling, right? Basically, they're stripping you of your trust in yourself in order to place that trust in them, that they know what's best for you. They may not say that out loud or realize that that's what's going on, but at its core, this happens. And it leads to a lot of dysfunction because once again, even if people have good intentions, people are human beings and they make mistakes, they have flaws, they have errors, they can be wrong. So like oftentimes people will tell you something with conviction, and religious people or leaders might be giving you a certain kind of advice that just doesn't fit your reality right now. You need to be able to tell the difference between, you know, what parts of you are remnants from programming and what parts of you are actually still resonating with you, what parts of your belief system, what parts of your faith are really still like you at your core, where you're not having to try anything, you're not compromising, this is just who you want to be. Super important to come to terms with something like that. Steph, I know we were going to go over some ways that we can process and heal from RTS. Take it away.
Yeah. That's so powerful about how you're saying to know the difference between the remnants of you that are programming still and the parts of you that are like resonating. Man, it's a journey, but you can achieve a place where you trust yourself again, guys. Like honestly, just learn to trust yourself, trust your instincts again. It's a beautiful unfolding love story of yourself. Like you find yourself at the end of it all. It's beautiful. So some tips and some practical tools to help you navigate religious trauma syndrome. First things first, therapy, counseling. It's a very obvious option. It's I feel like I'm so happy that therapy and counseling is pretty much destigmatized nowadays, except for within the church. But I just mean like outside, it's more and more available. It's more and more accessible. Probably you have some sort of benefit through your job that allows for therapy or counseling. So, you know, I encourage you guys to do some research and to, you know, if that's something that you feel called to do, go for it. Because talking about your problems with someone that is licensed and someone that has been, has training and education to be able to help you, get to the root of these things, that's going to catapult your healing journey. I'm telling you, it's going to help you see things that you never saw before. It's always going to be good to get to know yourself more. At the end of the day, it's never going to be a waste, because talking about your feelings and working through them, healing your traumas, getting to know yourself better, you come out at the top at the end of the day after all of that. So therapy. The next thing would be community support. So we talk a lot about community, honestly, and there was such a void in this space, and I'm so happy that now there are a few of us that have been vocal and we're speaking up and we're creating these spaces, because like I said earlier in the episode, I wish that things like this that exist now existed when we left, because I really needed that support system. So if you're here, please consider us a community. Reach out. We have a lot of content up right now that are things that can help validate your feelings and things that you may resonate with and can help you. So, go through the videos, rewatch some videos that you think really hit home for you. Sometimes I rewatch our own videos because things that I didn't catch the first time, I catch again. And I catch for the first time, like the second time rewatching. And I'm like, wow, that was actually really powerful. Like what you said, or what Sarah said in the previous episodes and stuff. And I just get so much out of this. And so, it must be so fun to be on the outside and see like other people talking about these things and, get involved. Don't feel shy at all. Like, we are very friendly people. I promise you, we don't bite. And yeah, so join the community. I can honestly say when I left, even though communities like this didn't exist, I did join a few Facebook communities. The Facebook communities were a little bit more leaning to the toxic side, I'm not going to lie, because it's a bunch of people who leave and they have a lot of grief and a lot of like very valid frustrations and anger. But if you don't do anything with that and you don't like seek to heal that, and you're just with a bunch of other people who feel the same way and haven't done the work to heal, then it creates this toxic environment. And that's not what I wanted. I kind of wanted like a place where I could speak my feelings, be understood. But they were the only things that were around at that time. And I am lucky, though, that it was in that space. I did find one friend who I'm still friends with till today. We kind of just started our own thing on the side. We started having side conversations. And she was also an ex-pastor's wife. She had been out maybe, I think, 5 years by that time that I had come across her, and I had only been out for a year, and we shared so many experiences and we validated each. She was the first person to really validate me. I just spoke to her the other day and I told her, girl, I love you so much. You were the first person to validate me, because even my husband, he was not like, you were on a different planet. I don't know. When we left, I'm like processing, I'm going through all of these things, and I'm really trying to I was struggling. I was on the struggle bus, because I'm an empath. I feel so deeply. Like my emotions, I feel very deeply. So I had to navigate a lot. And you kind of like were able to turn everything off and just go to work. And you worked a lot of long hours. We had just recently left. So you're trying, to make that money. And I think that your focus was just on that and like providing.
I will say we're very different, and I think this is a valid point for listeners, right? Because you might be hearing us and you might be like, I don't resonate with any of those symptoms, really. I just want to move on, and that was mostly where I was kind of at. So from my past, I became very good at disassociating, which is why I survived in that high demand, toxic environment for as long as I did. I had mastered the skill of just get through today and turning off anything that wasn't part of getting from point A to point B, if that made sense. It wasn't the healthiest way of dealing, but I was reading books like The Body Keeps the Score and things like PTSD. They realized that these guys, for example, were sitting in a circle, which, this religious trauma syndrome is very similar to PTSD. So these guys with PTSD, they sit in a circle and they don't want to communicate. They had a group therapy session. They didn't want to speak up. They were very disassociated, very rough around the edges. But as soon as somebody brought up a war story, they all came to life and they all started retelling their stories about, I remember, the bomber that I was in got hit with this. And they were talking about all these moments that traumatized them. Their nervous system actually became very comfortable with trauma and came to life at the possibilities of similar scenarios to their past. So I feel like with religious trauma, like you see it like survivors, like they're coming to life. Oh my God, you too. This is part of healing, like the trauma bonding, where you're breaking things down, connecting dots, validating, and trying to, move on, like get to a healthy space. But there's a toxic side to that where some people can get stuck with just like resonating with the toxic or the staying in that victim mentality and just, oh yeah, right, life is so hard and so bad, and we're never going to be the same again because this, that, the other. And it creates the opposite effects. It's funny, the overlap between PTSD and this RTS.
I think that just goes to show how serious religious trauma syndrome is. If it is comparable to PTSD, like it just goes to show how much this stuff really can affect you. So that's why it's important that if you were in a high demand religion, you reevaluate yourself and just make sure that you're not stuck in some sort of trauma that you never healed or wound that you have that you never healed, because maybe you feel stuck and you feel like things never get better for you. But once you detect and you find the root of that problem and you start to really work on them, be intentional with yourself and show up for yourself with compassion and love, you're going to see the change. So going back to some helpful practical tools. Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about the community, right? So I just wanted to wrap up that one. Like, I met a friend. She totally validated me. We're still friends till today. I hold her so near and dear to my heart. So these spaces, they are important, like don't be shy to reach out even to each other. Like, you never know. Me and her, I think she messaged me about something and she was kind of wary because there were some fake people in the group pretending like to be ex-pastors and wives but weren't. So I think she actually messaged me. She said like, hey, I've noticed you've been a part of this group for a while. I just wanted to let you know, be careful of this person. And then we just hit it off from there. And yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, you're gonna start to find your people and the people that really understand you when you join these communities. So the next thing I want to talk about is reclaiming autonomy. So one way to really start healing and moving forward is to start making decisions for yourself. It's like what you were saying, Anthony, earlier about, it's hard because you were in this institution in a high demand environment where they constantly controlled every aspect of your life. So now you're having to take agency back in your life and make these decisions. And they can seem scary at first, but once you take one step forward, the other will go forward, and you just keep going, keep walking, take baby steps. You don't need to think about how am I going to get from where I am to there. No, it's what's one step I can do today to get me there, to get me, whether that's to get yourself on a better career path, because maybe due to your high demand religion, you didn't finish your education. And so that's something now you want to take agency back in your life. You want to, go back to school or do a course and give yourself better career opportunities. Or maybe you want to rebuild relationships that church told you were bad or to stay away from. But when you think back, man, these friends that you had growing up, they were the realest people in your life. And you shunned them when you started going to church, and now you're out of the church and you're like, man, if it's someone that is worth like reconnecting with, it's someone that added value to your life, do it, reconnect. It's all important. Like, make the memories, build the relationships, put yourself out there, give yourself room to be you. Give yourself permission. That's the word I wanted to say earlier. I think that's so important. It wasn't until I gave myself permission that I finally felt like I set myself completely free. So the last thing that I want to say is mindfulness practices and self-compassion, which I talk a lot about compassion. I'm sorry. It's like one of my favorite words. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I'm so big on healing and on this journey of just deconstruction and loving myself and finding myself. But on this topic of mindfulness, I can honestly say it has been one of the pillars of my healing journey, because becoming more mindful and more self-aware and honing in, being more present to myself and to my body is what's allowed me to see what I needed to change, what I needed to take away or add on to my life to start getting myself to a place where I wanted to be, you know? And something specifically that has helped me for like over a year now that I do every day, twice a day sometimes, is somatic therapy, because it's a type of therapy that allows you to feel your feelings. It's like a body movement kind of therapy. And after so many years of like telling your body no and being very oppressive to your own body and your own feelings, somatic therapy has done such a beautiful job at helping me sit back in myself again and connect with myself again, and be able to feel happy, you know, and take on life with a new gusto and a new vision and a new everything. So mindfulness practices, it can be yoga, it can be somatic therapy, it can be just sitting and meditating, but do something that is going to allow you to be present with yourself. I think that's very important.
Absolutely. I think it's important. Like all the tools that were mentioned are important because when you're leaving from a high demand religious environment, oftentimes your relationship with like prayer and faith is kind of up in the air. So it can be kind of very it's earth shattering in a sense because your only coping mechanism now you don't know how to feel about it. You know, like you're still trying to like come to terms with what is what and what things mean to you now. So it's important for you to have an open mind where there were things that you were probably taught that were not for you, and you have almost like this secondhand shame or embarrassment over certain taboo topics, and it might be right for you. Like, you know, I remember we were in California for a while, so there's a lot of stigma because they, you know, that LA vibe especially, there's a lot of, you know, mindfulness, and there's a lot of like meditation, there's a lot of spirituality, right? There's a lot of different avenues to connect and all this other stuff. And that was one of the main things that you always kind of had to watch out for, this, that, the other. But funny enough, when my traditional ways of connecting to God, I did it just I don't know, it didn't connect with me anymore. I found the deepest like forms of healing and acceptance in the things that I was told were no good for me, which is I felt like it was God teaching me, hey, there's more to this world than what you were taught. Like life is not black and white. Not only is there a lot of gray areas, but in between the gray areas, there's a lot of color filled areas too. Like there's so much more to me than what you've been taught about me. And I started to like kind of see and connect through different things. And your experience may be completely different, but I tell you that for me as a pastor, trust me, I struggled with that, you know, that process of accepting like, really, is this where I'm at, and not feeling guilty about it. But as I just sat and got used to how I truly felt about things and really rationalizing and really doing the research and really understanding things for myself, I realized that it wasn't the way I was taught. And that has been probably the best part of my healing journey, is realizing that I was wrong. As hard as that is to admit, it is also very beautiful because I was wrong before, it opens up so many beautiful paths for me now to be able to enjoy life, to live life, to connect in a higher way, and to do things like what I'm doing right now. Because one day I thought that doing something like what I'm doing right now was completely wrong. So I'm so glad that, you know, I've come full circle, and I see the same thing in Steph, my wife. You know, she's come such a long way. It's been so beautiful to see somebody heal and just become more of themselves. It's so beautiful when you start to see somebody blossom as a person, right? And really come into themselves. And that's not something that can be faked. It's something that either it happens or it doesn't, right? And for so long, like, you know, I was forced to see Steph kind of closed in and make herself small, and then leaving that high demand religious environment was very scary, and it was a lot of unknowns, and it was hard work. But I'm starting to see all that work like pay off in her bloom. And it's clear as day that she's 1,000 times happier today than she was back then. And I feel like I can I can say the same for myself. It's been such a great thing that just keep an open mind and an open heart that God, or however you want to put it or phrase it, whatever's comfortable for you, there is a plan. The plan's never over until you decide it's over, right? And if it doesn't make sense to other people, don't put yourself in their box. Just show them how great your faith and conviction is, and how far you can go.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry. I wasn't
Already
expecting
crying.
that. Thank you. I mean, yeah, you've had a front row seat. You're probably the only one to know like every single detail of everything, because I tell you everything. You're my husband slash my bestie, so you know everything. But I if this was like maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, I would have had a lot of difficulty putting something like this out there, because I don't think I feel like a lot of people are going to misunderstand. But, now I'm in a place where I've totally accepted that. And I'm totally fine with people misunderstanding me or not agreeing with me. That's totally fine. Like, I really truly believe in respecting the path and journey of each one. I'm not saying that the path I took is the only one or the only right one by any means at all. I think that we should give ourselves permission to explore life however we feel called to. And whatever like brings you your highest joy, do that, and I'm in a place where I feel like if people misunderstand and they leave, that's fine, because what we're talking about, whoever it will resonate with, even if it's just at least one person, we helped validate how that one person was feeling, and or that journey that person is on. So if you're someone that can relate even a little bit to this, like exploring faith, so exploring like your spirituality, just know that you're not alone and it's not evil. It's so crazy how, we're conditioned to think that anything outside of something is completely demonic. And I can honestly say that everything that I've done up until this point for my healing journey has been with the utmost love and with like the highest passion for myself. And like that could never be evil. Like I can sense the purest of love in my intentions to myself. And I just feel so, so wholly blessed. And I've also curated a set of rituals and things that make me feel good every day, that make me feel close to God, that make me feel close to myself every day. And I feel like if everyone curated like their own routine and rituals and things that they like to do that make them feel good, instead of just someone else telling you all the things you have to do, even if it doesn't feel right or sit right, that is wrong. It should always sit right. It should feel good to you, to do the thing that you're doing to connect to your spirituality and to yourself. So it's been a beautiful journey. It's been one heck of a journey. And I also want to say, like, I don't subscribe to any one thing. There's not anything like I didn't hop out of one thing and like, oh, I'm full in on this. No, I'm quite the opposite. I'm very analytical. Tony knows. I love, love, love looking at the science behind things. That's what helps me understand why certain things that seem supernatural or seem like mystical work. Like when you were saying earlier, you said like some practices that you were told were wrong, but there are certain things that there's science to back up why something would work or help reframe your mind and therefore have an effect in your life. And we just, for a long time, chose to stay ignorant to the science and chose to stay ignorant to the research and the things that shouldn't be stigmatized or demonized and still very much are within high demand religion.
Yep. I mean, just give yourself the opportunity to make a choice, an educated decision, right? Because that was something that we were denied a lot. We were told how to feel and how to view things. We were never given the option to go out there and see all the perspectives and then come to a conclusion. It was, this is our line and we stick to it. And that's a very small and narrow way to live your life, right? It's important to have the options to compare and contrast and to go from there. That's how you learn yourself. And it's funny because I feel like God, he deliberately chooses the unorthodox route to keep us on our toes, right? Just when you think you have everything figured out, there's going to be a curveball, and you feel like a whole new like perspective or life opens up to you, right? Every time you think you've arrived, there's even more, in a good way, not in a bad way. Before, it was like every time you thought you had it down, there's more for you to worry about. And it's the total opposite of high demand religion, because my worth is not attached to what I do or my output or my accomplishments. I just am. Like, I'm an awesome rad dude because God made me that way. Like, I'm an individual. There's nobody like me in this world. There are people that could try to be like me and they would fail. And there's merit to that. Like, you got to understand, if he is a creator, right? And he made you a custom job, do you think it's so that you can just, turn into a cookie cutter mold cut out of somebody else? No, it's to be that individual, that handcrafted special version of yourself that he made you to be. So it's important to come back to terms with yourself, to value yourself, to process. And I mean, if you feel like you relate to some of these symptoms of the religious trauma syndrome, if you feel like you're working through some of these things, understand it's a normal part of a process of coming out of environments like we did, and kind of see where you are on the journey and see what tools will help you to continue moving forward. It's a process, and Rome wasn't built in a day, neither healing isn't linear. Like, it's a process to things, and just be patient and loving with yourself, and be proud that you're even at a point where you can embark on healing, because there's some people that never get to that point. There's some people that never even realize they had something to heal from. And I think that's even scarier than realizing you have a lot to heal from, because at least you're now getting that process started, right? So ignorance is not bliss, in my opinion. You need to be aware of yourself. When you're ignorant to anything that has to do with you, you're in danger of being manipulated. You're in danger of your power being taken from you. You're in danger of um, so much. So thank you guys for joining us. If you made it this far, I appreciate you guys. And if you are on a healing journey, I want to hear from you. Like, drop down in the comments, what has been your favorite part of resetting? Like, um, for me, I think one of my favorite parts of I'll answer. One of my favorite parts of being free is being able to be myself for the first time ever without worrying about what other people are thinking about me. That has been totally freeing for me. Before, I would worry so much about, am I giving off this, a holy appearance? Is this spiritual enough? And it was so much tied around what people thought of me, right? And that now today, I'm so happy to know that I'm worthy just because I'm worthy, and that's enough. So I'll leave it at
That's
that.
beautiful. I think for me, my favorite part is being able to feel my fucking feelings again. Like, I was not allowed to feel my feelings in there. If you are angry or upset about something, like, you just need to leave it in God's hands, whatever, let whatever be. If you got called out for something you didn't even do, or just little injustices that I would see here and there, not be able to say anything. It was so frustrating. And so now I'm so happy that I live a life where I'm allowed to feel my feelings and they're valid and I hold space for them. And there's no one that can tell me otherwise, because no one controls my life. I'm so happy to have agency back in my life. Like, I can post whatever the heck I want on social media. I'll never forget when I posted, as a pastor's wife, I posted a picture of us drinking tea at a tea house in California. And I put, like a little pun as the caption. I put, the family that drinks tea together stays together. So it's like a different version of that phrase that goes, the family that prays together stays together. So the bishop's wife, these people, they come from a different country. They don't really learn the culture. They don't learn even the expressions. What happened was that phrase, the family that prays together stays together, the bishop said that every day in his program. So I think in her mind, she thought he coined that expression. I think she thought that he owns that expression. because she immediately messaged me. She said, Stephanie, take that down. Like, no, that sounds bad. You're like making fun of what he's saying. Cause like you switched up what he's saying. And I'm like, what are you talking about? By that time, I was already like getting fed up with stuff. And I was just like, okay, whatever. And I just deleted it. But I could not believe it. And even what was the harm in that? Even if it was like an expression that he had coined and whatever, like, who cares if I said that? There was no malice behind it. And so I hated having to walk on eggshells all the time. And now I'm able to breathe, take up as much space as I want, and no one's going to tell me otherwise. It's amazing. It's chef's kiss. It's beautiful.
Yeah, having feelings is definitely part of being a human being, no matter what anybody tells you. So embrace them, deal with them, process them however you need to, because it's part of being a human being. And with that being said, we appreciate you coming for another episode of the Dark Side of Devotion. Thank you for tuning in to season 1. Make sure to come through for season 2. Once again, we're dropping season 2 somewhere around that late summer, early fall. And we got some cool topics ready. We're looking at some different styles of doing things, some collaborations. So far, it's looking like we got about 12 episodes coming out for season 2 so far. So
don't give away too much information.
No, I'm excited. I'm sorry. I'm bad at containing my excitement.
You really are. Oh my God, guys!
If I buy you a Christmas gift, you will know. Like that day, I'll be like,
Anthony will literally
get excited.
The same day that he gets me something, he'll be like, okay, I bought you something. Do you want me to tell you what it is?
Well, anyway, thank you for coming to the Dark Side of Devotion, or whatever the hell this is. We appreciate you for coming out, guys.